Hello, welcome to the analysis of your InBody test results. I'm going to break down what I've decided needs to go on the sheet. If you get the sheet in front of you, I am going to take you through it. You'll have logged on, you'll have used your mobile phone number, you'll have created an account, it'll have printed out, and that printout is what we're going to go through now. So we're starting with body composition analysis. This is the four components of what make you up. You've got the total amount of water in the body, protein for building the muscles, minerals for strengthening bones, body fat mass for storing excess energy, and then the total of all of that becomes your weight. So rather than stood on a set of scales now, we are analysing these four things that make you up. The data on the right-hand side is the World Health Organization norms. It takes lots and lots of people and creates averages of norms that we should fit in. So it's trying to create a healthy norm balance. But if you're not in it, that doesn't matter. The other thing with this normal data is it's taken off gender and age. So for the InBody scales, we take the age and we take your height and we take your sex, but it doesn't use your age. It uses the analysis of looking at you with your height because it needs to know your height, and that is it. So the norms then are created around your individual body composition rather than fitting you within a 30 to 40 bracket or a 40 to 50 bracket. So if we have a look at this sheet, it gives us total body water, 35.4 litres. Protein is your dry protein, so it's with the blood squeezed out of it. It is dry striated protein. It's just your muscle tissue, and it will include your organs in that as well. That's 9.6, so that is slightly above the WHO norms. Minerals 3.39, that's great. Body fat 17.6 and body weight, all of that added together comes out at 66 kilos. So that is an in-depth initial look at how you are made up and the split of it, and you can create that against a set of norms if you want to. We now move on to muscle fat analysis. This is InBody, where they use an anagram to explain their results very effectively and very quickly. They use the CID model: caution, ideal, and developed. So the C shape, the I shape, and the D shape on your muscle fat analysis gives you an idea of what we need to change. So ideally, we want to be similar with our body weight, our muscle mass, skeletal muscle mass, and our body mass, our body fat mass. If our weight and our body fat mass is higher and our skeletal muscle mass is lower, it creates the C shape that you can see at the top. The second one down is the I, ideal, where your weight, your skeletal muscle mass, and your body fat mass is in roughly one line. And then D, that's ideal, and D is where your skeletal muscle mass is bigger than the other two, and that creates a D shape. Now the D shape, obviously the more skeletal muscle mass you put on, the bigger that point is going to be. Now, you need to be aware of the under, normal, and over. Again, it is a guide. It is taken from World Health Organization data for you to have some kind of comparison to world norms. But again, this doesn't take into account the individual. So if you're slightly over, but you're in an I, that might not necessarily be bad for you. We need to then look at what your body fat percentage is, what your visceral fat score is, and we can take other things into account. So if everything else is low and your I is where it needs to be, then that's fine. That's you as your individual. You don't always need to compare to the norms, but over the world, they've taken a lot of information to create it, so it's worth looking at. If we now move on to an analysis just to look at somebody's here, this is a very small D shape. So this is going to be somebody that is the 66 kilos like we left with the body composition. They've got skeletal muscle mass slightly above where their weight is expected to be and where their body fat mass is expected to be based on the percentages given. So the numbers range from 55 to 205. That is a percentage, and that creates those shapes. So for this person, if you were looking at it and analysing it, they'd want to lose a couple of kilos, which we're going to see later on, and they'd want to put on a couple of kilos of mass or stay the same. So hold their muscle mass, reduce their body fat, and therefore weight will come down as well because you're losing body fat, and that will create a bigger D shape, and that person then is going to be in a really, really good position. Obesity analysis. BMI isn't relevant. We've talked about this a lot. People have talked about this countless times. BMI is calculated on height and weight. It cannot distinguish between muscle and fat. So if you're an athlete, if you like lifting weights and you're putting on muscle mass, it is 100% not a valid tool because it will show you as obese even though you could be lean with a six-pack. If a person loses 5 pounds, BMI cannot determine if that is 5 pounds of fat or 5 pounds of muscle. So based on what we've said previously, we can see why BMI isn't relevant. The reason it is on this graph is because InBody work with the NHS and the military, and therefore it has to be on at the moment because they're still using it, sadly. So for us, body fat percentage is far more effective in assessing where people are. Again, we've got the under, normal and over norms based on WHO's data. That then gives you some information to where your results stand. So if we look at the results here from the person that we've used, their BMI would class them as over, just, and the body fat percentage puts them into a normal range. Now that can get less as that person maybe loses those 2 kilos we were talking about earlier, and if they put muscle mass on, it's not going to increase their body fat percentage. It's going to make it lower because their weight has got heavier, but their body fat then has got less because they've put more muscle on. So by putting muscle on, that will reward you in your body fat percentage. By losing fat, that will reward you in your body fat percentage. So your segmental lean analysis, we're going to split the body up. So we go right arm, left arm, trunk, right leg, left leg, and it provides you 3 measurements. It gives you your actual weight of lean mass in that particular segment. So the right arm here is 1.71 kilos. The percentage of lean mass compared to your weight, 100% is ideal in that segment. So here we've got 86. So there we could put on a little bit more muscle mass in that right arm. A score under, normal or over compared to your ideal in that segment. So we're normal on the upper body and the trunk, and we are under on the legs, left and right. So to break that down into training, that would mean that we need to do a lot more lower body work in order to get those to normal, and we could do a little bit more upper body work in order to get those percentages higher. So therefore we know that your focus here at the gym should be on weights, but with a little bit more emphasis on lower body weights to increase the muscle mass on your lower body slightly, and then also slightly on your upper body, but with a bigger focus for me on the lower body. So the segmental fat analysis works exactly the same way as the segmental lean analysis. We split the body up into the 5 parts: right arm, left arm, trunk, right leg, left leg. It then measures the amount of fat at each of those 5 sites. Now what I want you to ignore completely here is the percentage, because it is taken from World Health Organization, and the data then becomes very, very skewed based on the percentage. The percentage of fat mass compared to your weight between 80 and 160% in this segment. So we can just totally ignore that from our results. At the bottom of the page, you get a little graph over time, which is your body composition history. It will track your weight in those boxes going forward. It will track your skeletal muscle mass, and it will track your body fat percentage. So in an ideal world, we might be seeing the weight go up or down depending on what your goal is. If you're here to lose weight, we're hoping that that goes down. If you're here to get stronger, fitter, faster, more athletic, you might see that weight go up. And this is where the scales don't give us any information. When you stand on a set of scales, it gives you one total. It doesn't break down the two underneath you. So for me, this is one of the best scores, because if your skeletal muscle mass is going up and your body fat is coming down, your weight may be stable and you think you're not achieving anything on your scales that are in your bathroom. But on these scales, it's going to show us that your skeletal muscle mass has gone up and therefore your body fat percentage is getting reduced. InBody score and weight control. The InBody score is a quick tool for a very fast overview to see where your body composition sits. A score of 80 out of 100 or above is considered that your body is in a good composition and therefore a healthy state. It's just an analysis that InBody use. The way they do it is the score will increase by a point with every kilo of muscle mass gained or fat lost. So if you lose some fat, you'll gain a point. The score reduces by a point with every kilo of muscle lost or fat gained. Therefore, an athletic build may well have a score over 100. If you are lifting big weights and you are, let's say, a big rugby player, you could still have a six-pack, but you could be in a score surplus of 100. The InBody score and weight control are linked. InBody score starts at 80 points. So it works out from 80. So then you could lose points based on too much body fat or not enough muscle mass. So it starts at 80. So anything from 80 and above, and we can go above 100, is considered a good score. So just looking at that in slightly more detail, where you've got your target weight here, we're using 62.9. The weight control, it wants you to lose 3.1 kilos. That is totally coming from fat. Now, I want you to take this with a little bit of a pinch of salt, because if this happened in this client, they would be absolutely shredded. Okay, so they'd be six-pack and they'd be looking pretty good. So just be careful where we look at the weight control. We're not asking everybody to get into that nick. It's kind of pushing you to being very lean. It's a nice target, but it's like the end target rather than what is our general norm of what we're trying to work about. I talk a lot about having like a happy balance, and that you can go out and enjoy yourself once you've got further down that line. This isn't taking that into account. This isn't the happy balance lifestyle. This is kind of looking at getting you into absolutely tip-top shape. So the obesity evaluation is just the same as our obesity analysis. We ignore the BMI completely, and the body fat percentage, PBF, is just related to whether you were in the World Health Organization's norms of normal, slightly over, or over. So that needs no further analysis. Your body balance evaluation is looking at the segmental analysis, where we looked at the different body parts, and it's just seeing whether you are balanced on your left or your right. That could show that you've had an injury in the past. If your muscle mass is higher on one side or the other, it could show that you are carrying an injury, and it just shows whether the ratios between upper and lower are balanced and whether your left and right side are balanced. So the visceral fat is the fat surrounding your organs. InBody recommends people maintain a visceral fat level of under 10, or a visceral fat area under 100 centimeters squared. That's how it's worked out. From the waves that it's sent round you, it looks at the size, and from that it divides it by 10, and that's how it gives you its score. Higher amounts of visceral fat are associated with the development of diseases like diabetes, stroke, heart disease and dementia. So we're looking at the research parameters now, and this is very simple. We've got your fat-free mass. That is the amount that you weigh without any fat. 48.4 kilos in this example. Now for somebody of that, they work out what your basal metabolic rate. Now your basal metabolic rate is the number of calories required to keep your body functioning at rest. BMR is also known as your body's metabolism. Therefore, any increase to your metabolic weight, such as exercise, will increase your BMR. Therefore, it gives you the calories for your basal metabolic rate to keep you functioning at rest. And if you look to the right of that, there is the World Health Organization norms again. And then the recommended calorie intake for what you're trying to achieve based on your results. So if we need to lose some fat, it will drop calories out. Now that might be too many calories. I think they've gone for 500 calorie reduction. Now we can individualize this and tweak this, but I like the guide that it was giving you based on your analysis for your body fat. So it was giving you a very quick piece of information after looking inside of you. And then I want to work from that number with you, because the calories is what needs to be tweaked. So if we get 2,073 calories and we find out that it isn't quite working, we might take another 100 off, or we might take another 200 off. If we find that we're not putting in on enough muscle mass, we might add another 200-300 calories onto that diet. So this is where then we can make individual tweaks, and that's never one number fixed. That calorie intake will constantly change. If you get lighter, then your basal metabolic rate might go down a little bit. If you're doing more exercise, then it's going to go up more. If you're trying to put on more muscle mass, you've got to eat more, so therefore it goes up. So the results interpretation QR code, basically if you scan this with your phone, it will take you to a website which basically tells you the information in text, like you're seeing here, that I've spent the time talking through. So if you've got to this point in the video, then you probably don't need this. But if you want to look at it written down from their website, this is where it is, and it explains what most of the things are that we've gone through. And just to note, the QR code on your paper is only for that more information. It's not the same as the MyZone one. The MyZone one, if you missed it when we did the scales, we can load you back into it and you can upload it at any point to your MyZone app. So if you haven't got it on the day, no stress at all. We can get it the next time. We just need to find your program, your phone number in the back of the computer on the scales, and we'll be able to add it on, but you will need a member of staff for that to happen. Thanks for sticking with me for the last 18 minutes. I hope you now have a better idea of understanding your results. If there's any questions, please feel free to come and talk to us. If you're going to ask us a message over text, please send your result sheet as well so I can see it, and we can then help you analyze it a little bit better. I'll probably do it via a voice note to try and help you understand it. But if you've got any questions, please feel free to come back to us. I am so pleased we've got this. I hope it motivates you to find out what's inside you to make a fitter, healthier version of yourself. Any questions, please feel free to ask.